All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, I think, and it's gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
At first you think, okay, gratitude, that's pretty basic, right? It's just good manners.
Yeah.
But I was reading that a whopping 68% of customers actually leave a business because they feel unappreciated.
Wow.
68%.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's a big number.
Yeah. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to figure out how strategically showing gratitude can actually boost your conversions.
Right.
But also, and this is the long game, how to create those fiercely loyal customers that I think every e-commerce business dreams of having.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're really going to be looking at articles that are exploring the psychology of e-commerce
Yeah.
and how that all ties together.
Because it really is about moving beyond just those transactions, just processing orders.
Okay.
It's about cultivating value and connection with your customers.
So let's define this,
When we're talking about gratitude with customers, I mean, are we just saying thanks and moving on? Is there more to it than that?
There's definitely more to it. I mean, it's definitely more than just a thank you and then, just moving on.
Okay.
I think it's about really recognizing and appreciating the value that each customer brings.
Mm-hmm.
They've chosen you.
Right.
Acknowledging that choice is fundamental. And we've seen a real evolution, I think, in how businesses think. Moving away from that transactional, just processing the order to really trying to, build those relationships that last. And in today's world where customers have so many options, I think it's a critical ingredient in forging those deeper connections.
Yeah, that 68% number really hits home, I think.
Right.
It's a real pain point, right?
That is.
That gratitude can directly address.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from a purely business perspective, I mean, we're always hearing, and you hear this all the time, it costs way more.
Oh, yeah.
To get a new customer than to keep the happy one you already got.
Right.
Where does gratitude fit into that equation?
Well, I think that's the big one. It's like the research we looked at actually supports that.
Okay.
That acquiring a new customer can cost 5 times more.
Why?
Than retaining an existing one. 5 times.
Okay.
I mean, so think about that. For the same amount of effort, for the same expense,
right,
you could be nurturing the relationships you already have.
Right. So it's almost like, you're not just doing good customer service by saying thank you.
Right.
But it's a cost-effective way to improve your bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that, we tend to think about it as, we've got to give good customer service. But it actually is a very good business strategy.
Right.
By boosting retention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so not only are you saving money on getting those new customers, but it sounds like you're actually getting a competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
If you have grateful customers.
Because they're not only more likely to stick with you and buy things, but they're advocates for your brand. They're going to tell people.
Yeah.
They're going to leave positive reviews. I mean, they become this unpaid marketing arm. And the research even points to financial returns. From campaigns centered around gratitude. So it's not just like a warm and fuzzy thing.
Right.
It's directly contributing to business growth.
Yeah, it's tangible.
Yeah.
You can measure it.
Exactly.
So that's what we like to see. Makes you wonder why everybody isn't doing it, right?
You would think, right. But the reality is, I think, although many businesses will acknowledge that, yes, we should say thank you. I think the execution sometimes falls short.
Okay.
It sometimes feels like we're checking a box rather than, this genuine expression. And it's woven into the experience. And what's interesting is that, customers' expectations for feeling valued are actually on the rise. So I think that's a big thing. There's a gap between what the customer expects and what's actually delivered. And that gap represents an opportunity.
Okay, so we know why, right? It's good for the customer.
Right.
It's good for the business.
Yeah.
But let's get into how this is actually working. Like what's going on in our brains.
Yeah, that's where it gets fun.
When we experience or express gratitude.
Right. So neuroscience offers some really compelling insights.
Okay.
Because when we feel grateful or when we express it, it lights up. The reward centers in our brain.
Okay, right.
Right. And that triggers the release of dopamine, which we all know is like pleasure and motivation, serotonin, which helps regulate mood, and oxytocin, which is often called the bonding hormone, which is really, really important for building social connections and trust.
Wow. So it's like a natural good feeling.
It's a cocktail.
Yeah, in your brain.
Yeah, it's like a natural cocktail.
Just from saying thank you.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
And you know what? What's even more remarkable is that consistently practicing gratitude can lead to long-term changes in our neural pathways.
So it's not just a quick hit.
No, it's not just a quick hit.
You're actually rewiring your brain.
You're strengthening those positive connections in your brain.
Okay.
Right. Making us more inclined toward positivity and more receptive to building these trust-based relationships. So, for an e-commerce business, to cultivate lasting customer relationships.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful foundation.
So it's not just a fleeting moment of happiness. It's rewiring our brains for connection.
Yeah.
What other kind of psychological benefits are there to feeling appreciated?
Right. So the research shows a really strong link between gratitude and well-being. Okay, so studies have found that individuals who regularly practice gratitude report higher life satisfaction, okay? One study, it was close to 7% more.
Wow.
Okay, so they also tend to experience better mental health. So when customers develop this sense of gratitude toward a brand, and that could be a thoughtful gesture, it could be exceptional service, it could just be consistent appreciation. They are more likely to trust that brand. Right. And that trust then becomes a driver for future behavior. So they are more inclined to revisit, they have a higher propensity to repurchase, and they're more likely to share their positive experiences with other people.
So they become your marketing arm in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that feeling of appreciation.
Yeah.
It motivates us to want to give back to the brand. In some way. And those purchasing decisions are often how we do that.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of laid the foundation of what gratitude is.
Yeah.
Why it's so important, both, emotionally and from a business perspective, and the psychology behind it.
Right.
So let's get down to brass tacks here. How can e-commerce businesses, before somebody even makes a purchase, how can they start using gratitude?
Right. So these are those pre-conversion gratitude strategies. So, even in those initial interactions, you have an opportunity to show potential customers that you value their interest. So it could be high quality free content that solves a problem for them, providing resources without immediately expecting anything in return, personalized assistance. The goal here is to create those, those little thank you moments early on, a really friendly newsletter, bonus for signing up to your email list. Those small gestures, I think, begin to establish that reciprocity, making them feel valued, and, it significantly increases their likelihood of eventually making a purchase.
So demonstrating value right from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about when they're actually at the point of they're ready to click buy now? They're about to convert.
That's a big moment.
Yeah.
And, a simple, sincere expression of thanks can really make a difference there. So just a brief message as they proceed to checkout. Thank you for choosing us. We really appreciate your trust. Just something like that, it can really help alleviate any last-minute hesitations or doubts that the customer might have.
So it's a little bit of reassurance.
Yes.
It's like a nudge.
That they're making the right decision.
Yes, and they feel acknowledged and appreciated. It's like, that little decision point, It can significantly bolster their confidence in completing the purchase.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm making a good choice. And they value my business.
And you mentioned before there's actual data to show this works.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You could look at the numbers and see.
Yeah. So the research that we looked at actually highlighted some really compelling statistics.
Yeah, okay.
So e-commerce campaigns, that explicitly included a thank you somewhere in that pre-purchase process showed a significantly higher conversion rate. We're talking upwards of 10%.
Wow.
Compared to campaigns that didn't include it, which was closer to 5%.
Wow, that's a big difference.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And A/B testing has actually repeatedly shown that even a concise thank you note integrated in the checkout flow can lead to a measurable uptick in the final purchase rate.
Okay.
And while each of these little thank you touch points might seem small,
Right.
their cumulative effect across all those interactions, it leads to this increase in conversions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this makes me think about when you make a purchase online, you get the thank you page.
Right. Which is kind of, usually it's very bare bones, but it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, because a lot of e-commerce businesses will treat the thank you page as that final step.
Okay.
Okay, here's the confirmation and you're done.
Right.
But in reality, it's a really great opening for engagement. Think about it. They've just completed the purchase.
Right.
So they're probably feeling this sense of satisfaction.
Right.
Even a little excitement. Mm-hmm. This is the time to really reinforce their decision.
Right.
And introduce them to other ways that they can connect.
Okay, so what should be on that thank you page then?
Well, I think a really good thank you page starts with a clear and immediate confirmation that their order or sign up was successful.
Right.
It should reinforce the value of their choice, right?
Okay.
Maybe even reiterating a benefit of their purchase.
Okay.
But crucially, it should offer really clear next steps.
Okay.
Right? So this could be suggesting related products. It's providing links to your online community forums.
Okay.
Direct them to helpful resources, product guides, FAQs.
Okay.
And of course, personalization is key.
Yeah.
Use their name.
Yeah.
Tailor the suggestions.
Right.
It makes the experience feel much more connected.
Yeah. Less generic.
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of conversion opportunities are there on a thank you page?
Right. Well, I think it's a great opportunity to encourage further engagement and even drive sales.
Okay.
So strategically, you could introduce cross-sells, upsells, maybe complementary products.
Okay.
Or a premium version of what they just purchased.
Okay.
It's an ideal spot to invite them to your customer referral program.
Right.
Incentivizing them to spread the word.
Right.
Make it easy to share their purchase on social media with pre-filled sharing prompts. Offer a call to action to sign up to the VIP list for exclusive content.
Right.
And don't underestimate immediate feedback. Right. So a brief user-friendly survey can provide, really valuable insights for the future.
Right, right. So it's much more than just a receipt.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It's really a launch pad
Yeah.
for building a strong relationship. So let's talk about the long game here.
Sure.
Customer loyalty.
Right.
How does showing gratitude contribute to that?
Well, the link is really strong.
Okay.
Between gratitude and loyalty.
Okay.
Because as we said before, when customers feel genuinely appreciated, it fosters an emotional bond between them and your brand.
Right.
Right. And that connection acts as a barrier against switching to competitors.
Okay. Right.
Even if they encounter a slightly lower price elsewhere.
Okay.
So grateful customers become loyal customers, and this loyalty translates into a higher customer lifetime value.
Right.
They stick with you for longer, and they make more purchases over time.
Right, right. So what are some ways then that an e-commerce business can kind of demonstrate that post-purchase gratitude?
Right.
And nurture that customer loyalty?
So there's a number of effective strategies.
Okay.
So sending an immediate personalized thank you email or even a video message right after the purchase is great.
Okay.
To reinforce their decision, make them feel seen.
Right.
You can celebrate customer milestones.
Okay.
Like, their 1-year anniversary with a thoughtful gift.
Okay.
Or a handwritten note.
Okay.
Surprise perks. Like randomly sending them a discount code, a free sample in their next order.
Okay.
Can create moments of delight.
Right.
Right. And invite your loyal customers to exclusive online events, webinars, Q&A sessions with your product developers, or early previews.
Right, right.
So it makes them feel like they're valued members of your community.
So you're making them feel special.
Yes.
Okay, and then does actually putting those things into practice, does it really improve those metrics that we all look at?
Yeah. So when you integrate a genuine culture of gratitude into that customer journey, you see a significant decrease in churn rates.
Okay.
That's the percentage of customers that stop doing business with you.
Right.
You also see an increase in repeat purchase rates.
Okay.
And then metrics like the Net Promoter Score, how likely are they to recommend you? And overall customer satisfaction scores will also tend to improve substantially when customers feel valued and appreciated.
So, okay, we know gratitude's a great tool. It helps with conversions.
Right.
It helps with long-term retention. How do we make sure we're effectively expressing it across all the different channels that we use to interact with our customers?
Right. So a multi-channel approach is important, right? So let's start with email and direct messaging. Short, personalized, we appreciate you notes included in transactional emails. They can be really impactful. Mention the product they purchased, the date they signed up. It adds that touch. Right? Then set up automated thank you triggers for those important milestones like birthdays, anniversaries, create delightful, unexpected moments. Track your open rates and click-through rates to get the data to see how it's performing.
What about social media?
Social media, yeah.
It's so public, right?
Yeah.
It's very interactive.
Yeah, it's a really great, highly visible opportunity to express gratitude. Right. So you can give public shout-outs to customers or followers who have shown support for your brand. Sharing that user-generated content with a thank you not only makes them feel appreciated, but it also serves as powerful social proof for the broader audience. Respond to customer mentions, questions, concerns promptly and warmly with an appreciative tone.
Shows you value every interaction, It helps cultivate community.
And then what about actually integrating it into your website? Into like the digital experience. How do we do that?
There are some really subtle but highly effective ways to do that. So you could have personalized homepage banners that greet returning customers by name, Include a message of appreciation. In-app pop-ups that thank users for their regular engagement or for completing specific actions. Reinforce that positive sentiment. And then, of course, we talked about it. Make sure your thank you pages, your order confirmation pages include that you rock. We're so glad you're here. It leaves a lasting impression.
So it's that positive atmosphere. Everywhere. Okay, now what about, so those are all online things. What about offline? Does that even matter anymore? I think they absolutely do. In fact, in today's world, a handwritten thank you note that you include in the package has an even more profound impact. The effort demonstrates care. So in a retail setting, a warm smile and a sincere thank you from your staff creates loyal fans. And think about strategically integrating your online and offline efforts. So reference an in-store purchase in a personalized follow-up email.
So it's a unified brand experience.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure that all of this, thanking people, that it actually sounds personal? And it doesn't sound like just another marketing thing.
So I think personalization is key here. This is where, intelligently leveraging that customer data you collect is important. So by analyzing their purchase history, browsing behavior, responses they might have provided in surveys, you can really tailor those thank you messages to be more relevant and have a greater impact. Now, while AI can help with personalization, at scale, it's really important to maintain a human, authentic tone in your communication. Because sincerity is key. Otherwise, even the most data-driven personalization can feel hollow.
So it's the human touch that really matters.
Yeah, exactly.
What about timing?
Timing.
Does it matter?
Timing is critical. So I think you need to map out the customer journey to pinpoint those key moments where that expression of gratitude will have the greatest impact. So for instance, right after they sign up to your email list. After they complete their first purchase or after they've reached a significant milestone. Now, you can use behavioral triggers as well. So you can send, a thank you after they've logged in a certain number of times or used a particular feature. But it's important not to overdo it. You don't want to be like bombarding them with thank yous. So find that balance. That thoughtful and appropriate balance.
What about the actual, the voice, the tone of what we're saying?
Absolutely. So your voice and tone should be consistent with your brand identity. Generally, I think friendly, approachable, and sincere is a good way to go. But it's also important to be mindful of cultural differences.
Okay.
So what might be considered warm and casual in one culture could be too informal in another.
Right.
So A/B tests different language variations and seek feedback from a diverse customer base.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here on the how-tos.
Right.
And the theory behind it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some examples.
Sure.
Do you have any case studies that really illustrate this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We've seen, numerous businesses across many sectors that have achieved significant improvements by strategically implementing gratitude initiatives.
Right.
For example, many online retailers have seen, a noticeable uplift in repeat purchase rates just by optimizing their thank you pages.
Okay.
Post-purchase email sequences with personalized thank you messages that subtly suggest relevant products.
Right.
Highlighting user-generated content on social media, thanking those customers has proven to be a really good way to boost loyalty and community.
Okay.
Right. And offering personalized discounts or exclusive early access to new products.
Right.
Along with a heartfelt message of gratitude.
Okay.
Consistently leads to increased repeat orders and higher customer satisfaction scores.
Okay, what about businesses that are subscription-based?
Right.
Like, you got to keep those people coming back every month.
Absolutely. So they thrive on minimizing churn and maximizing subscriber lifetime value.
Right.
And gratitude plays a huge role in that. So, an example is Pret a Manger, right?
Yeah.
They have their coffee subscription service. They use these periodic thank you notifications through their app.
Correct.
And they give random perks, like free upgrades, extra treats, just to continually make them feel valued and appreciated.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these small but consistent